We'll start in 2 minutes, so we'll need to get. Oh yeah, but also.
Hey, welcome. We were just waiting for you three. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Swell Pod, and with our special guest today, I'm going to butcher names because I'm terrible at names, but Theron and Neal. Neal's easy. Theron I find difficult to pronounce for some reason.
Pretty good.
Welcome to the Kiln as well. For those that haven't been to Kiln before, this is an incredible co-working space. They have multiple sites all around the US and building many, many more. And so if you do want to tour or anything like that, afterwards, let us know, and the reception team, the experience team will guide you around the office and just let you have a look at the space. But yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, so just a little bit about the Swell Pod and what we're about. So essentially, we're a podcast. Generally, we'll do these pre-recorded, but we're doing this live for you guys today, so we appreciate you guys showing up. It's also being streamed on YouTube. So yeah, thank you for everybody watching. But the Swell Pod, essentially, we are interested in speaking with world builders, game changers, disruptors, other pleasantly rebellious humans, and we like to talk about their ideas and how those ideas swell into movements. And a lot of times we'll circle around three core questions. What does it take to challenge the status quo? What does it take to change the world? And I can't remember the third one, but it's okay. But yeah.
Something from nothing. That was the first one.
Something from nothing, that is the one, yeah. But so today, though, we are here, of course, with the Harmon Brothers. I'm going to read a little intro for you guys so we can get started. But yeah, so we're live at Kiln. In this episode, we're sitting down with two of the 6 Harmon brothers, Neal Harmon, CEO at Angel Studios, a streaming media service that offers family-friendly entertainment that amplifies light, and Theron Harmon, president at Harmon Brothers Consulting, which brings creative strategy, analysis, and marketing direction together for e-commerce brands ready for hypergrowth. So this powerhouse family of creative marketing and entrepreneurial types surrounded themselves with a world-class team of other people who also happen to be creative marketing and entrepreneurial types. Together, they built Harmon Brothers, the Utah-based ad agency behind some of the most memorable sales-driving ads in internet history. You guys are probably familiar with some of them. Squatty Potty, right? Yeah. So since 2013, Harmon Brothers has created numerous groundbreaking, distinctive social media campaigns, which collectively have billions of views and have created 8-figure and 9-figure impacts of dozens of client companies. So yeah, we're going to learn more as these two brothers share their own story and perspective about how they went from growing up as Idaho farm boys to being sued by Disney. And yes, did we mention they also crowdfunded tens of millions of dollars for their platform and the series The Chosen. So we're super excited to get started.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sounds like you've just always had success. but we'll get into that. We'd love to know about the failures along the way and the challenges, which must have been, numerous. But welcome to the podcast. I'd like to start with kind of just looking at family, your family culture. Number of people asked us about that on the forum. Like, what were they fed? And not just potatoes, but what were you fed? How were you brought up? I'd like to just start there and just maybe describe to us a little bit about what that was like, life on the farm.
Sure. So, I'm the oldest of the children, siblings. There's 9 of us, six brothers and 3 sisters, and Neal falls third. There's a sister between us, Michelle. We both love her, and grew to love her more as we became adults. Anyway, there's we grew up in rural Idaho, and for instance, the place where I went to school, there were more people in the high school than there were in the town's population. And it was 306, I think, was on the sign, and the school probably had 350 in it or something like that. Junior high and high schools were combined. But as far as growing up in our family, it was a close family. And not only was it close with us as siblings, but it was close with extended family. We had, my grandparents lived, we could ride our bikes to aunts and uncles and grandparents, and we were involved in their farming operations as well as other people that were in our area. It was, our family, I would say, it was a struggle. I mean, we grew up poor by U.S. standards, for sure, but we used a lot of our time to create our own things to do, right? So we would, a lot of time building tree houses. I think our parents were, it was probably just a different time. So, I remember a time when we created bows and arrows, but we had to amp it up. So we would take, some type of cloth or toilet paper, whatever, wrap it around it, douse it with some fuel, and then light it on fire and do fire arrows, And so it was obviously a very different type of an upbringing. We built a raft that we sailed on the local canal, and a lot of paper toys because we couldn't buy the toys that we wanted, so we would craft them in kind of paper crafting 3D. I even tried to mail some to Hasbro, and I don't think they survived to see if they took my ideas. But anyway.
Our family, we didn't have the money to buy crayons and masking tape and paper. And I remember we thought it was Christmas when our grandma Harmon would come visit us. She'd come from Utah, and her husband was a professor.
The BYU.
And he'd bring a stack of, like a box full of paper that was printed on one side and then white on the other. And that was Christmas, that we got that and a thing of masking tape and crayons, because we'd make all of our toys out of it.
We got some toys too. Our parents sacrificed that. I know. I got an electric paint once, but I know my parents sacrificed for. But anyway, it was it was a great upbringing, honestly, but with struggles and with conflict too. Meaning, you get 9 kids and a little home, and you fight. Sometimes verbally, sometimes physically. Yes.
You fight, you make up, you learn how to make up as well.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Comes in useful if you happen to build a business, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can learn to get through childhood and all love each other, you can probably get started in a business.
Are you guys, in terms of storytelling, is that something that also kind of just found, like, it was within the culture of your family growing up, and was everybody
I would say
kind of...
that. I would say my mom was very much a storyteller in the sense that she would, prepare stories and lessons and dig into our family history and read excerpts from family histories, and there was that we were surrounded by that for sure. And one of my brothers, Daniel, who was the creative director and now is the showrunner for Tuttle Twins, he loved advertising, and he did since he was little. I mean, as far back as I can remember, practically, elementary school age, he was reciting jingles, right? Meaning he would.
And he'd come home if he went to a show, like it was rare for us to get to go to film, but if he went to a film, he'd come back and he'd remember almost every line.
Yeah. And he'd do impressions, and all that kind of stuff. And so he really had that creative gene, and he was actually the only one that like officially went into advertising. Meaning he's one of his, early jobs was at an agency out of Chicago.
Well, we're going to, do you have another question?
Okay.
I think what we wanted to do is maybe just talk us through the timeline really briefly.
Sure, keep
The
it short.
timeline is fascinating, and I actually just recently listened to like an hour and a half of the timeline with you and Jeff. Really fascinating. But give us just a really quick overview, and we're going to go through some of that with some key questions.
Go
around.
for it, Neal. Give him a,
What thread are
Just
you?
your-
What thread are you?
Well,
looking
from I think your first kind of biggest break around the Spotty Potty.
You don't
kind
want
of
all the
period.
failures before then.
We
Okay.
will reach.
We'll get to
We'll
some.
get to that as well. We don't want to skip over that. We'll come back to it, but and then up to
So
today.
the timeline from our first break
Yeah.
to today.
Yeah.
So I think that would be
Probably Orbrush. No,
was Orbrush or Status King first?
that was the first time we worked together. Damn, on a business.
Was that? But which one was first? Remember?
Status. I don't.
Okay, I
remember.
think Orbrush was first.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey was finishing up school, met an inventor who had been trying to sell this tongue cleaner that would get rid of bad breath. And he had tried for years to sell this thing, and was failing. And Jeffrey went up to him after class because a bunch of students had got up and said, "We've done the research, and people won't buy this thing online. 92% of people said they want to buy this in a retail store." And so Jeff raised his hand and said, 8% of Americans, that's quite a few people, like probably around 30 million people. Why don't you start selling to them? And after the class, Dr. Robert Wagstaff went up to him and said, "Hey, I love your idea. I'm interested in selling." That same summer, I was visiting Jeffrey, and he gave me an Orbrush because I was at business meetings, and I said I forgot to bring a toothbrush on the trip, and I'm in trouble. I've got a bunch of meetings. He's like, "Oh, have you seen this?" He let me try the Orbrush. I tried it and worked the whole day, and then we watched a movie that night, and at midnight I could tell that I didn't have that sensation on my breath. And I'm like, this product really works. Anyway, we connected with the founder, and we started Orbrush together as a new company. And then Jeffrey with Austin Craig and Joel Ackerman built a video that we put out on YouTube, and I built a website and started helping with optimization so we could get this thing to sell. And at the time, YouTube was just barely starting to sell advertising, and we were the first advertiser, and we got a break because you could buy ads for a penny an
Less.
ad, or less. And
Yeah, fractions.
to the point we heard later when we were invited to YouTube that they had to like rate limit Orbrush so that we didn't see, it didn't seem like that we were the only advertiser on YouTube because they were trying to get their start. But we were the first company to make money on YouTube, and we went from 0 sales to global distribution of the Orbrush just by marketing on YouTube, to where it was in Walmart, Walgreens, in Japan, in Europe, all over the world in about, I don't know, two years. And that, but really we just got a break because we were there at the right time. We had enough skills, and we got this break where the ads were super cheap. So that gave us our break. And then as we finished up Orbrush and our stock vested there, we had this eccentric, brilliant businesswoman from Texas who brought us a little poop spray called Poopery and said, "I want you to do what you did for Orbrush for my poop spray." And Poopery. And so then we we were trying to decide what to do next for the next company, and we decided to start this little, with this ad campaign for Poopery on the side. And last minute, one night, we were trying to create an entity to receive a check from the Poopery company, and Jeffrey said, we should just call this Harmon Brothers. So we stick it in the Utah website, and next morning received the check, and within 3 weeks we had the ad launch, and it just took off. And we were thinking Harmon Brothers would be a placeholder, and had made fun of people who named their companies after them, but then it hit all the news in the press, and Jeffrey was grateful that we named it that, because he wanted. Jeffrey's really a brilliant marketer, but he wanted all the brothers to have recognition for what had happened, and so Harmon Brothers got formed. We wanted to start this company called VidAngel, because we had young children and we loved storytelling, and we wanted to share stories with our family. And after getting Poopery launched, I went with my brother Jordan, and we started working on VidAngel, and Jeffrey and Daniel focused on Harmon Brothers, and so we started VidAngel, and then obviously we tried a bunch of things with VidAngel. We got sued by Disney. Somehow we survived that lawsuit. We sold off the filtering product and started an original content studio, Angel Studios, and our first 2 projects were Dry Bar Comedy, which is a smash hit, has over 150 million viewers, gets over 1 billion views a year, and The Chosen, which is now at around 100 million viewers, and everywhere through the world it's become a global phenomenon. And we're like, well, here we are building a movie studio, and as farmers from Idaho. And is that too long? Or okay,
That was perfect.
Okay.
That's great. And then the consultancy as well. Tell us a little bit about how that
Yeah,
works.
so the agency in VidAngel, there was almost this, hey, Jordan, you and Neal go here, and Jeffrey and Daniel and Benton, a cousin, so this is before I was even involved, you go here, and after Poopery, the Squatty Potty team, sought us out, and they had some success, and they were scheduled for Shark Tank, and so I wasn't involved yet, but they were starting to get a name for themselves from the standpoint of building video ads, right? Conversion video ads, and finding some successful distribution,
He says he wasn't involved, but when you get into the struggles, like he's one of the reasons that I was able to make it, because the way that he helped me through some struggles. But
So yeah, and I was actually going through some financial setback even at that time. I was in my late 30s, and I had worked as a business manager at a law firm up in Southern Oregon with my father-in-law. Actually, I was managing the business side of the firm, doing a little bit of paralegal work, doing some advertising, that kind of thing, and we decided to wind up. There was I won't go into it, but basically there was a decision to close the firm. It kind of broke up, and rather than, he was going into politics, or had already gone into politics and was continuing to pursue that, and so we kind of looked at our options and decided to wind it down. And so it took about a year to wind it down, but I really didn't have a lateral move in Southern Oregon. He was paying me well, and I had a family to support, and it was during the 08, 09 period, and so the housing on the West Coast had started to crater, and we were upside down in our home, and all those kinds of things. And so anyway, I had a business that I had run in my since my early 20s, and I had a partner who it had continued. It wasn't thriving, but it was a business in promotional products here in Utah, and there was a decision basically that she wanted to get out of it, and I could come back into it if I wanted to, and so it's what I had to come back to, but it couldn't support us. So I was when Jeff and and Benton and Daniel were working on the Squatty Potty script, and we're having those writers' retreats and everything. I was demoing his basement in the house he just bought, just doing construction labor, just trying to not slide backwards. My wife was cleaning houses and things, and just trying to make it, and so that was a decade ago. So you say you were you've been successful all this time. Well, that's not quite the whole story, right? And so anyway, that. But at that time, I had done a Kickstarter with Austin Craig, with Connor Boyack, and my brother Daniel to do a documentary film. Jeffrey was involved in that, and who else was involved in that? Austin's wife, Becky, Daniel.
Life on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was a Bitcoin documentary. I was super interested in that.
He got all of our family into crypto.
Into crypto. You were that one.
I was that guy. I'm that guy that annoys everybody. So anyway, but I just was, we were surviving, renting and trying to make it, but it was good, and I got to do a project or two with my brothers as kind of a part-time gig, and they saw that I worked hard and had was able to communicate with people, and so I got involved when we started to work with Purple. What?
I'm not going to say specific names, but let's just say that we've had a few people we've worked with that the more successful we've been, the harder the relationship has been. And Theron is the perfect balance to that. He's able to...
Well, thank you.
What does that mean? The harder the relationship has been. I mean, because you guys have a strong creative vision, and is it a
Part
clash
of it. It's part of it. Our business model was built on when we built it on a big kind of a residual, and so if it went huge,
I understand.
I mean, there were ads that we did when we did ads for Squatty Potty and Poopery and Purple and Chapbooks and all these different companies. Some of these ads I was getting served them 3 to 5 years later. And we had models built around that. And so I think we needed to do some work on our model to some degree as well. You just have strong personalities. You have people that are we had strong personalities, and these are founders that go and you go in and you help them, and they have incredible teams and they do awesome stuff, and all of them had amazing products. And so they come in, triple their business, and there's all of a sudden a lot more voices and a lot more money and all those things.
We had one founder, I'm not going to say the brand's name, but we had one founder who said after the campaign was just exploding, selling out all the product, and we get this irate phone call saying, "You're destroying our brand because I don't have enough product to give to everyone."
You guys are good at your job.
And that's probably part of your criteria now, right? Making sure you only bring on brands that are ready for that.
Yeah, that's part.
Huge
Yeah,
growth,
there is more vetting along that front, and the environment's changed too, right? Meaning it's some of those really early ads, there was an economic engine behind them, but it appeared to the outside that it was only viral, right?
Yeah.
And there was a fair amount of viral component, and Facebook and Google started to really tamp down on that, meaning they could smell money, and so that all the algorithms changed, right? And so the ads, even in those original formats, we still do those formats and have had successes inside the last 6, 12, 24 months that are in the tens of millions of dollars, but you wouldn't know the brands like those early ones. Those were getting a lot of attention because the style was very groundbreaking, and therefore we were getting a lot of PR and so forth. And so I think, I don't know where I was going with that, but the point is that we do try to vet that more, but it's a better problem to have to sell out your product than it is to not be able to sell anything.
For sure. So we've covered your family, your culture. We're going to come back to that at the end. I've got 2 challenges for you, actually.
Okay.
Kind of brotherly rivalry competition. It relates to something in your childhood, actually, that I found out. So 2 competitions. We'll come to that in a moment, at the end.
Okay.
If anyone came for a squatty potty, did anyone come just today to get
You're
to
gonna
win
have us
a squatty
demonstrate the
potty?
squatty
No,
potty?
I'm not going to do that. Oh yeah. So this.
The challenge. I'm sorry, I don't know where you're at.
I think we might lose our audience quite quickly. But we'll get to that at the end. But yeah, Josh, where do we go next?
No, I honestly, there's so many interesting things about kind of what you guys just covered. I am interested just in, obviously, I think that, so you mentioned timing was a big part of what happened at that
For sure.
moment.
For sure.
Were the length of your ads, were those happening anywhere else, or was that also pretty unique to what you guys were doing?
That was pretty new.
Yeah. And,
sure.
And so, like, as things have evolved, like, what's been the biggest, understanding that you're with Angel Studios now and you're with consulting, but so how has that affected with the current state of, post-COVID, but also the changing algorithms? Like, even there was a question from somebody in the audience who was asking about, like, what are you bullish on in terms of which platforms you're running ads on? And
Sure.
I'm just interested in kind of how, like, the difficulties that you faced through some of these changes or what you guys are seeing as a result.
I think Angel's a great framework for which to answer that, because you're doing a lot of cutting edge stuff with
Yeah.
live video and those kinds of things.
Yeah. So the nice thing about growing up with these platforms is that we've been able to stay on top of things, and so as they've become more competitive, we've been able to adjust to those changes and still build out scalable models. But there is a lot of unrest right now because of iOS 14 changes and the Google changes that followed suit.
Right. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, quite frankly, it's going to make it harder for smaller folks to do what we did back then. That's why I say part of it's timing. But there are opportunities if you understand the implications of the fact that you can't have, you can't track your user for more than 24 hours. You've got to get an action that you can track or
Bring them into your
ecosystem in 24 hours in a way that you can follow up with them in the future. And as soon as you can rebuild your models, instead of tracking over 28 days, you got to grab that user well enough that in that 24-hour time period, and then follow that user in order to build a scalable model now. So if you change your mind from trying to go for, because we used to, especially on a small ticket item, we'd go for the sale and remarketing, and we'd go for an ad that would play well during the 5-second skip period on YouTube, and that would play well on Facebook visually, because 80% of people were just watching these videos without the audio on. You nail those two things. Facebook, they perform better as square ads than they do as portrait or landscape. If you nail those things, and then you think of your conversion funnel as, I've got to snag something in 24 hours, and then I follow that for, until I get to a sale. It's just a change in thinking today.
Yeah. No, that's great. And, one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys too was, obviously, I think to do some of the things that have been done, to build, persist through VidAngel and to build Angel Studios, as well as to create, I think the length of ad being that it was unique, as well as the some of these ads that were done, but also some of the content within the ads as well. Like, it's disruptive, and I think that there's an element of, like, you have to have, I think, some, unless you're crazy, I think that there's an element of a strong vision there, right? Like, I think you have to have some sort of strong vision and courage and belief in yourself that you're doing the right thing to persist in those moments. Like, I think I even read about some of the difficulty trying to sell the concept of just like the squatty potty, for example. But I'm sure even through the lawsuit, I'm sure community is a huge part of this confidence as well. But I'm interested in, in terms of going through these moments with a strong vision, and is there one of you that's kind of really persistent with a really strong vision that's kind of very inspiring to everybody else, or kind of what have you seen help bring each other through these moments, and when maybe other people might not see that, well, a unicorn pooping ice cream isn't a good idea, or something like that.
I would say Jeffrey was
I
very
was thinking
instrumental.
we all married well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the supportive spouses for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, but
Um,
both those factors were Jeffrey's the fifth one down, but he was the one that kind of saw the vision of the ore brush, right? And he worked for 6 months with no pay on that, just trying to trying Facebook groups, trying all kinds of things. We did a business together, trying to create and this was all of us. This was the whole family, except for I think the youngest, because she just wasn't old enough to really be involved. Where we were trying to, it's called Status King, and it was kind of a Reddit or a dig for Facebook. So you'd rank statuses, and then we had a T-shirt printing algorithm that Neal coded up and everything, and it was never financially successful, but we were swinging, right? And there was a lot
we
of
made
vision.
that business over Christmas break.
Yeah. So it was just, there was a hunger to succeed, and plenty of failure in the early days. But yeah, our spouses, like you can't bring 9 kids together and all their spouses and their young children and use your Christmas break to talk about business and with Neal coding, 16 hours a day and kind of a thing, and unless you have a really supportive infrastructure and of each other, then you can't do that. You know what I mean? You have to have. There are ways, of course, for anyone to tap into that level of support, to find friends, to find partners that can give them that support. Frankly, communities like Kiln, I think, start to create some of that, to give you that level of just that time when nothing's happening, right? Or that you have not figured your model out. And frankly, I think that
It'd be great to talk about more of those failures or those challenges. But where are you going to go before
I think,
that?
we could probably start going into Angel Studios, I think, or at least it's interesting to think about that pivot too. Like at a moment when there's probably a lot of success here, you chose to go off and do VidAngel, right? And so just tell us about that decision, and just some of the ups and downs that I guess you faced along that ride.
Okay, so Theron did well in mentioning Benton. We actually consider Benton and Jordan, Daniel, Jeffrey all co-founders of VidAngel, and because we were all working in our basements together on both Harmon Brothers and VidAngel.
trying to see which one would take off, and then they both started to get some traction.
Yep. But the real aha moment, Theron spoke well of Jeffrey. Jeffrey's wired differently than any of the brothers, and he's wired differently than most people. When he came, he served a mission in Ireland, and I was starting a business, and he came home, and I'd been studying all these books, and these business books, and I remember studying the art of action to learn about conversion funnels and web pages, and was working on a business and was trying to work on a conversion page. And then Jeffrey came home, and he just whipped up a conversion page, and I said, you implemented all the principles I've been learning about in like a dozen books, just intuitively. And he just has this gift for business that's unique on understanding opportunity. He wasn't interested in VidAngel. Didn't like the idea of it. Felt like that could be a legal quagmire.
No way.
Go figure.
And his kids were young. I mean, like he was He wasn't as interested in that product for his own children at that time. And I remember the morning that it clicked for both of us is I had this experience and thought that if we built this product, that we would be able to attract an audience of like-minded people who like us want to share great stories with their children, but they don't necessarily want their young children reenacting things that aren't appropriate in a family, or saying things to each other, you know, to their siblings. And I said, I remember telling Jeffrey, if we build this, then we'll attract an audience of people, and we'll be able to produce and distribute stories to them better. We'll have the information and the data to distribute stories better than Hollywood does to this group. And the moment we talked about that, Jeffrey's like, oh, I get it. I'm super excited about that. There's real scale and content. It's worth the risk. And so that's when Jeffrey decided to get involved in VidAngel. And most people don't know that at the very beginning of VidAngel, we were planning on trying to turn that into a distribution company, which is why after we got through the lawsuit, and people were confused when we sold the filtering technology, because we had arrived at where we were trying to get to.
Yeah.
I lost your question, and so I'll stop talking.
No, that's good. So let's just can we dive into the lawsuit though,
Yeah.
right? Like, what was the lowest moment of that? Like, I'm sure that's a pretty terrifying thing to have happen. I don't know. Yeah.
Jeffrey would say that the very lowest moment was when the judgment was entered for $62.4 million
Yeah.
in the Los Angeles court, and
Is that the lowest moment for you, though? Or is that even something you want to speak to?
I can't. I shouldn't share the lowest moment
Yeah.
for me. But Jeffrey said at that point, he said, you know, that's it. There's no way out of this. And he said that's his lowest moment. And he says he remembers writing in his journal, you know, I don't believe that we're going to survive this, but I'm going to work like we can. And because before we started this company, I just felt deep down that even though I didn't know how it would turn out, that things would turn out. And to the point where people thought I was a little crazy, that I wasn't facing reality, that I wasn't, I just kept believing it was going to work out. Even when we filed bankruptcy, even when we went into the bankruptcy court and they overturned some of our rulings, when they started threatening to sue us personally, when all these things happened, I just, even though it didn't seem like there was a path out, I believed that we were going to make it. And I really don't know why. I wouldn't actually ascribe it to some kind of inner strength of mine. It was just, I just sense it. So anyway, and so then when it did turn out, so the reason that we got out of no company that we know of has ever survived a lawsuit from Disney, no startup. And
It was not just Disney. It was Disney, Warner Brothers, Lucasfilm, and Lucas wasn't with Disney when it started. What was the fourth one? He was like,
there was Fox, but Disney acquired Fox. So it was really Disney and Warner Brothers.
Right.
Because Disney owned all the rest of them. So the reason that we won the lawsuit with Disney was, one, we filed for bankruptcy in Utah, which gave us enough time to get Dry Bar and The Chosen off the ground. It gave us a year to build up a business that we could say there's a chance for this company. Two, COVID hit, which helped The Chosen to explode. People were stuck in their homes and they wanted something hopeful. And so they started watching that show like crazy. Three, Disney started losing $25 million a day during COVID because they had to shut down all their stores, they had to shut down their theme parks.
Yep.
And somebody, you know, the number 2 guy was at trial for all 7 days during our trial, and somebody decided, because after trial, one of the attorneys looked at me. I went up to shake her hand, and she wouldn't shake my hand. She was so angry with us, even though they won. She was so angry with us, the way that we fought. She wouldn't shake my hand, and I looked at her eyes, and it was like, she wants she wants to destroy us. There's no question. This lawyer wants to destroy us, and they went straight to the bankruptcy court and tried to destroy us.
Yeah, they definitely had the goal to destroy, dissolve the business, right?
Right,
They did not
right.
want it to survive.
So the COVID situation created a scenario where the higher ups brought in some new lawyers, that weren't after our blood, and I think they were probably just like, stop bleeding money. Our attorneys say that Disney probably spent over $30 million on our lawsuit when we sold $3 million of Disney movies and made them a profit. So, we spent $6 million, they spent 30. Eventually, people tire, and when their company's losing so much. So it was really a miracle that we even got out of the lawsuit. But as soon as the COVID thing happened, and they could see the Chosen and Dry Bar growing, they're just like, and then our trustee in the bankruptcy said, these guys are going to pay off the entire judgment. And Disney's like, oh, no. We're not interested in being paid off. We want you guys to stop filtering our stuff with your technology. So we settled with the, I forgot one thing. During the Disney fight, 8,000 people, I shouldn't have forgotten this, but 8,000 people invested $10 million to help our company
Totally
survive.
at risk.
Yeah. And so
Thank you
those
so
four
much.
things,
Yeah.
those four things made it so that Angel would survive, and then it became Angel 2.
That's what covered the $6 million and got Dry Bar off the ground, with that,
Yeah, it's
that fundraise.
incredible.
It is incredible. I kind of want to understand. You don't necessarily know this because you were not Disney, but what was driving that? Was it a certain leader? Was it a certain? I mean, I worry that it's just their bad to the core value. Like somewhere has gone wrong. Why would they do that, right? And we've had lots of corporate bullies out there
Sure.
over the years, but I don't know.
So it was confusing to me when we first got the lawsuit that it was Disney, but it wasn't confusing for very long, because if VidAngel succeeded, so Disney, if you look at a quadrant of where all the studios sit, and you look at the accessible, family-friendly content, there's only one company that sits in that quadrant.
Yeah.
And so us using technology that pulls all the other studios' content into competition with Disney, it makes economic sense for them to not want that to happen. That make sense?
Yeah.
So, there were some ugly things that happened, and I feel like, our mom read us stories about Walt Disney when we were young, so we
Yeah, he was a hero for us.
Yeah,
for sure.
The Disney brothers were heroes to us, and so we feel like, and one of our driving forces.
I wanted to be an animator when I was growing up, and my brother Daniel actually tried to get into the BYU animation program.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times, and didn't get in. But now he's
Now he's
now he's show running an
an
animated show. So things can.
So was
life can
there
change.
that feeling of feeling it was going to be okay? Was there a moment, I guess, when you were coming out of this that you realized that feeling? Like it was like, oh, this is the moment where it is actually okay. And if so, yeah, I guess, what was it when? Yeah, when was that?
So I hope this is helpful to people here. So I did a company that failed spectacularly, and Theron helped with money. My parents sold their house to support this company. I had uncles and aunts who helped support this company, and it failed. And I spent years trying to dig out of that mess. But at the very bottom of that mess, I remember that it was kind of a precursor to Chatbook. We had this product called Memory Press. We were just before our time, and our tech, we weren't able to get it there before the 2008 crash happened. And after the crash happened, I had to let go even more of our team, and I lost a key engineer, and our site went down. And I remember working to get that website back up, and I didn't sleep for 72 hours. And at about 48 hours, I remember sitting out on the porch. I was at, my family's house, and we were living off of food storage. We didn't have food. I had gotten a bleeding ulcer in my stomach, and my health wasn't good. And I looked out, and I just couldn't see a path forward. It just felt so dark. I was just like, there's no way out of this mess. And I've always wondered whether I can be an entrepreneur, and I have officially failed.
Lost people hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, almost $500,000. And I had $90,000 of high interest credit card debt under my name, and couldn't get a $20 bank line for checks that bounced. Anyway, I just was like, I'm a failure. This is it. And when it was that black, I can't say it any other way except I think that there's a power outside of us. And a power outside of me got me to get back up, walk back in the house, and continue to code for 24 hours to get things back up and running. And I got them back up and running. And that, for me, was the moment where I personally succeeded. That company never succeeded. Like, I still had to work 7 years. It failed. I eventually shut it down. But that was the real victory for me, was at that moment.
Yeah.
And it was the most important lesson, and it was at the time when I felt like my value was the very least.
Mm.
Sounds like you returned to that moment multiple times then, to remind yourself that was the moment that I know
It's going to be okay.
it's going to be okay.
Yep.
That's amazing. I mean, it's powerful. It's having, be able to go back to that when you're not sure, to having gone through that, right? But in terms of, I guess, so now what you've seen with the success of some of the, I mean, what I think is really incredible about Angel Studios, like the idea of putting the power back into the hands of the community, right, to fund the content that they want to see, I think is incredible. I think that what's also interesting about that is you have the pay it forward feature, right? So the idea of how important community is, and those thousands of people who believed in you originally, and now even probably more than that, who continue to believe in you. I don't know. Is there anything that you can talk to in regards to like what you're seeing now as you kind of move into, what is it, the third season of The Chosen, which I think is going to be in theaters
November 18th.
November 18th.
Yep.
And not only that, but you have so many other pieces of content as well. So of course, like Tuttle Twins and a whole line, and Dry Bar Comedy, a whole lineup of various different
Coming up.
shows that are coming up. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if you can just talk about community and the importance that they played in helping you build up to where that got.
Yeah. So like I said, community saved us. We raised the $10 million in 5 days right during the Disney lawsuit. We used that money to start the Dry Bar. And Daniel emailed or called both Jeffrey and me and said, hey, this is really powerful. What if you took this concept and funded shows based off the crowd decision? And that really clicked and resonated. So after we got Dry Bar running, we went and we're looking for our first scripted series, which we ended up deciding to do The Chosen. And 19,000 people backed The Chosen. We've now had, I don't know the exact number of projects that are now funded, but So I'll miss one if I list them off. But we're up to almost like probably 65,000 investors that have invested in the projects.
Across the portfolio of projects.
Mm-hmm. Across the projects, there's a book called Wisdom of Crowds that teaches how smart collective wisdom is, and that gives some examples of a scientist going to a fair where they were doing a raffle, guessing the weight of an ox, and whoever guessed the closest weight won a prize. Well, the scientist went afterwards and took all the tickets and said, and did a calculation and found out that the average was within 1 pound of the weight of the ox, which was almost perfect. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire had 3 lifelines. You guys remember the lifelines? One's like the 50-50 lifeline, another's the expert lifeline, another's the audience lifeline. And which was the most coveted lifeline? It was the audience. The reason was because 50-50 was 50-50. The experts, on average, were right 65% of the time. The audience, on average, was 91% of the time right, voting through a computer. Another cool example is the Navy was looking for a wrecked ship, brought together a bunch of experts, gave 150, not experts, 150 people from all different fields, said, here's all the information we have. You guys make independent decisions on where you think the ship is. We think it's somewhere in this, like, 200-mile range. This group of people found the location of the wreckage within 300 yards. This principle just proves itself over and over again. And so this is what Angel is built on. Angel refers to the investors, the owners of these projects, when they take ownership for what they're doing, and they put themselves in the decision of, do I want to see this made? Then when a large enough group validate that, then that project will be more likely to succeed in the market than if Harvey Weinstein chooses a project for distribution in Hollywood. That, the elite versus the audience.
Massive customer feedback,
Yeah.
basically, at scale.
Yep.
Cool.
We will,
another question?
yeah, well, we are going to get to questions from the audience as well. How important do you think, would you have got to where you got to without the trials of the Disney case? Like, would you be here right now talking about The Chosen if it wasn't for that?
No.
And why not? Like, what were the key things from that made that happen?
So when Jeff, a mutual friend of Dallas Jenkins and us, Matthew Farace, introduced us to the pilot episode of The Chosen. It's called The Shepherd. Jeffrey watched it first when Matthew sent it to both of us. And he said, you need to watch that show in your inbox, and I think it's going to be our first scripted series. And I said, what's it about? And he says, it's about Jesus. I said, no. We're a for-profit company. We're not going to go make a show about Jesus as our very first project. That just doesn't make any sense. That's a church's job. Anyway, he said, just watch it. See what you think. Anyway, I sat down and watched it, and this story just took me in, and I realized afterward, church is never going to be able to make this kind of a series the way that the audience could. So I think the fact that first off, when we started VidAngel, we had talked to experts in the industry, and they said to grow to an audience of at least 1 million before we tried to get into original content. And so that's where we were headed. And we thought we would get there at the time, it was 2016. We were thinking we'd get there maybe by 2019, 2018 or something like that, based on our growth trajectory. We got sued. At the time we got sued, we had, I think that December, we had 188,000 unique customers pay us that month. And so we were way behind the 1 million. But once we were sued, we're like, there's not going to be another chance to start this thing. We're going to just announce the studio and go for it. And that's when we announced the studio and did Dry Bar. And I think that put us in a spot that we were humble enough. And the Dallas also had his own experience that humbled him that brought most unlikely partners together to make something. And it turned out that having gone on that path, we probably accelerated, because we did less than $8 million the year we were sued. And last year we did, I think 122 or 123. I mean, it just accelerated our growth so much to get into original content that it was for the better that happened. That's amazing.
Would you've got here without the pay it forward?
No.
Can you just tell me how you got there? Was it like just a moment of inspiration? Was it brainstorming 100 ideas and experimenting with them? How did you get to a pay it forward feature?
Jeffrey would tell this story well, but he's not here. So, thousands of tests. We started out trying to sell it like you would sell a normal show. You pay money to watch it. We tried giving away the first episode for free, and then you pay money to watch it. We tried rentals. We tried testing thumbnails, testing conversion paths, testing for 6 months. We tried this sharing system where you could go and buy the show for other people. I remember buying 100 copies, trying to give it to all my friends, and I got 2 people to watch it after giving away all these copies. And and I think only one of them really watched it because they talked to me about it afterwards because they were excited about it. You always know when someone's watched The Chosen because they'll talk to you about it afterwards. They want to talk about it. And ideas, we were just stuck on this problem. And the community started seeing people say, I wish I could watch the show. And then people would say online, hey, I've got a free one. I'll give you a free one, and then you can go watch it. You should really watch it. And people would do this online. And I remember one night, Jeffrey and I remember Liz was sitting right by us. We just started talking about the fact that the people who watch the show so want to share it, and that there are people who are totally ready to receive it, but they don't know each other. And so it was that night that the Pay It Forward was born, and it did feel like just a flood of inspiration. And the thank you note system and everything we thought of that night. And then we just went to work coding and went to talk to Dallas. Said he couldn't talk to us about it until November, which was weeks before it was time to launch the season. And but we just went to work building the whole system, even though we didn't know if Dallas was going to get on board with it. And then we told him about it, and luckily his wife loved the idea, and Pay It Forward was born. And then by COVID, in the beginning, we rate limited, like we had to have enough Pay It Forwards to for people to be able to access it, or they had to wait in line. And then during COVID, we decided to just remove all the limits. Everybody felt good about that. Dallas called us that day. We had made BitAngel free that weekend, working all weekend. And then Dallas called us Monday morning and said, "Hey, I think we should we should remove the rate limits." And we're like, "That's a great idea." and so we released it, and as we did, it just grew and grew and grew and grew through COVID. And so that was the break that made The Chosen happen. It was 8 months of testing. And
that was
grinding.
with the first season, right? So
With the first half of the first season.
First half of the first season had already been made, and it was trying to build a distribution model, a business model around that.
That's right.
Amazing. A great example of just iterating, right? And just trying to find the right thing. We need to wrap up and let questions start, but do you have a couple of last ones?
I just have one last question. So, if you guys were to give one piece of advice to somebody who's setting out to do something, novel, creative, innovative, or disruptive, they're setting out on that long journey. Maybe they're armed with an idea and that's about it. What advice might you give somebody who's setting out to do something a bit crazy?
Well, I mean, this isn't my own saying. I think I probably heard it from Russell Brunson that when you don't have resources, use resourcefulness. And I'm paraphrasing. And it's not novel, but that really is a very true principle. There is so much that can be done just using the time you have available and sharing repeatedly, right? In a way that allows you to hone it. I think too many people. I mean, why is it that it takes 50 tests to get a funnel, but you give up after 3 times trying to talk to somebody about an idea?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Meaning there's that iterative process is very real, not just in conversion marketing, but even in the propagation of your own ideas.
Yeah. I love it.
I would definitely say just the moment you give up, it's not possible any longer. So just don't give up.
Perfect.
Great. So
Thank you.
do we have some rapid fire questions that you want to go through, or do we open it straight up to
Let's
the
just
audience?
open it up for the audience. We'll
We
do a
okay
quick
for
Q&A
time?
for a couple minutes.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Chris. First of all, I want to say I'm so proud of you guys for what you have done and just going through so much hardship and not giving up. I've been there myself. I don't think my successes and my failures haven't been as big, but definitely that entrepreneur path is a crazy adventure, right? And for me, I feel like it's not necessarily about the thing you create or the money. It's about what it does to you, because I have friends who sit in cushy salary jobs and they don't grow, right? They just surf Facebook and try to get out of stuff. And like, we are attacking problems head on all the time, right? And growing and having these things that crush you, and somehow you crawl out of it and you grow and it pushes you in this other direction you didn't see. And so I don't know if this is a question, just say I love, you guys are great. I feel you on a different, smaller scale. And that for me is just about the growth. That's what we're really doing. Companies come and go, money comes and goes. But for me, it's the growth. And thanks for being a great example of that. That's it.
I love
Well
that.
said, Chris.
Well said.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, with somebody over here.
Hi, if there's a problem right now that you're stumped on, that you're trying to solve, and someone could come in just with a magic wand and solve that problem, what is the problem? I didn't mean to stump you or anything. It's just someone asked me this and it helped me a lot.
This is the e-commerce strategist coming in. The amount of friction around like influencer or kind of sharing your ideas through the crowd and having that be properly incentivized, and the amount of like agencies and people stumbling through that and trying to get a CAC that can work, that's an interesting one that I think a magic wand would be very useful.
So like if you had a Gordian knot and then you could just cut it with a sword, that would be the thing.
Well, it's one of them. It's one of them because, to Neal's point earlier, the being able to successfully media buy. I was on a webinar not too long ago with folks from representatives from Klaviyo and Triplewell, and they had some other e-commerce company that was represented there as well, and they basically said that if they were looking across all on the back end, all of their different clients that are using those platforms, and the ones that were growing in this environment, and I'm sure that it's more complex than this, but they were folks that had tackled TikTok. It doesn't mean that TikTok was even the majority of what they were spending, or that they had abandoned Meta or Google or anything else that they were doing. But for whatever reason, many of the companies that were succeeding had that in common in this environment. And so I think that there's so much fragmentation going on in the world of platforms and everything from the censorship and all the technologies that are used to suppress advertising and so forth. There's the models that are able to kind of weave through the canyons of that environment are fascinating, and I'm seeing a lot of one-offs, but getting a a unified theory around that, I think, is pretty tough. And I'd love to have a magic wand for that purpose.
Thank you.
This is more of a recommendation. I'm looking for recommendations. What book recommendations? What's your top 3 book recommendations for your young self?
Oh. Yeah. You want me to go?
Sure.
I'm a big fan of it's the business book is Leadership and Self-Deception. And just all the ways we lie to ourselves about, our relationships and everything else. And there's a book that preceded that called The Bonds That Make Us Free, but it was kind of the precursor to the Harbinger Institute that published that book. So those are a couple of big titles in my mind. They're commonly recommended, but there's a reason.
Thank you.
Any book or business book, or what do you think?
Business books.
Business book? So I guess the reason I ask that question is because I sometimes think that some of the most inspiration I get is from reading material that's totally unrelated to what I'm trying to solve. So I've read a lot of business books. I love I love the book Good to Great. I love The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I love in dealing with some of the lawsuits and the realities of a trustless, like a world where trust, like the lack of trust comes at a huge cost. It was really instructive for me to read Genghis Khan, just to understand more Machiavellian type tendencies in people, and because I don't relate to that stuff, I'm more wired to trust and to care about causes. And, but again, I think I've gotten more inspiration solving business problems by not reading business books, by being around people, or by reading other material, meditating or praying, than I have from the business books themselves. Though I've gotten some good ideas that I've implemented from business books too.
Thank you.
Essentialism by Spencer's brother Greg is a good one.
Oh
too.
yeah, that's a great book.
No, surely not.
Yeah, it's good.
The brother speaking.
Hi, I'm Nate. Thanks for sharing, you guys. My question is a little bit, not necessarily business related, but definitely has everything to do with that. I've heard it joked at Kiln more than once that you're with your first investor longer than your first marriage. I've heard it more than once. And just hearing about all the wild roller coaster, and you guys kind of tackling this as a big extended family, but I was hoping you could kind of unpack a little bit about how you kind of navigate this with your own nuclear families, with your kids and your spouses, especially like that $90,000 in credit card debt, and like feeling like God just said like you're gonna be okay, but like how you experienced that, but what was that look like? What was that like for your spouse? I'd be curious to know some of the family dynamics at play, because a lot of us are navigating startups with families, and I don't think a lot of us want the family thing to dissolve. I think we care about that too, and so could you speak to that some?
What's your name?
I'm Nate.
Nate. That's a great question.
It is. Go for it.
Nate, I'm still married longer than my first investor. So,
But barely, because I invested really early.
that's true.
A year, 2 years.
so Tricia should be here to share that, but she also, she thinks more positively than I actually do. But family's really, really important to us. And for me, it's just been maintaining some key patterns in our family that has helped us. Some of the things that were really helpful for us, we have a big family, but we do something called buddy time, where mom or dad spend time that's not influenced by whether or not the kids are doing their chores or whether they've been bad or whether it just happens. And we do this. We try to do this every week with every child, at least one of us for a while, and then it went to every 2 weeks. And we tried to maintain something around that pattern. We also try to just have one family night or day, or when we're in the film business, we'll take a vacation, because the worst time of the year are all the holidays for us. So we'll just take random vacations at strange times, just take off, go hiking. Like I signed a big deal last week that was incredibly grueling to get done. And the next day I just left work, went home and made paper toys with my kids, and then we went hiking that afternoon and just let everyone know I'm checking out. But as long as I think there's a way to be an entrepreneur where you're being an entrepreneur for them and for their future rather than for yourself. And I get that wrong probably more than 50% of the time, but I get it right enough that my family gives a good, a good review of how hard I try.
So I think I probably got that wrong with my older. I have 7 children. 4 of them are adults now, and with my oldest 3, I got that wrong more than I got it right. And I'm very fortunate with my marriage, and those adult relationships with those kids are definitely, improving, developing, a very good thing. But to say that there isn't a cost is not true, right? Meaning when you can't detach from your work. And that's one of the benefits, frankly, to just getting a job and saying, this is a job I don't have to take home with me. I will find a way to clock out. I will set my boundaries. In early stage, when you're pre-revenue or when costs are exceeding revenue and you've got that, all those kinds of things, it's pretty grueling. And learning the skill of being present with your family actually is a learned skill. It doesn't.
Yes.
I don't think that comes naturally to most entrepreneurs. I think that most of them actually they perseverate on the business problems, and then sometimes that metastasizes into anxiety and to all kinds of lashing out, all those kinds of things. And I'm pretty even keel. It wasn't so much that; it was more just
Not being present.
Not being present, emotional neglect, if you will, right? And that I'm not making those mistakes as much with my younger children. In fact, I would say I've done as much of a 180 as I can, and yet that skill is actually probably more valuable to you than any other reward that could come out of the entrepreneurship. Is just learning to be with people and care and love, for the things that they're interested in that moment, including your own immediate family member.
That's
Any other
great.
questions?
Probably have time for maybe one.
Yeah.
Maybe.
How much time have you got?
I'm fine.
okay.
I'm fine. Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys again. As a young digital marketer, when you're in school and other places that are teaching you soft skills, a lot of classes can seem to have outdated information on actually how to do what you're doing. So as someone who's wanting to help friends with entrepreneurship, ideas and different products, stuff like that, grow their businesses, I know we talked about books, but courses, other things with very hard skills, would you recommend maybe to grow into understanding these platforms and the changes and things that are happening right now?
That's a. Let me take your name and get back to you on it. To be honest.
Okay, Braden, I'll talk to you.
Yeah. That's yeah. Let's
And maybe
talk
you
about-
can send it to
Yeah.
these guys so they can publish it with the
With
podcast.
the
Yeah, let's
podcast
do that.
notes. Yeah.
Thank you guys. I'm a big fan of you guys. I just wanted to ask, heading into this recession that we're kind of facing, macroeconomics, if you were to start over right now today, what industry would you try to serve? What model would you? I mean, I know
Food.
this is a tough question, but
I get in food.
food.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, I like it. Do you have one?
No, I agree.
Cool.
Why?
Whoa.
You've tried food before, right? And then we
Because-
didn't even get to.
Because there are too many people who thumb their noses at it. They just and
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy, and therefore it's constrained. It is hard. It is logistically hard. It perishes. People don't like it, and yet they appreciate it. They want the best that they can get, and the inflation just keeps pushing it up. Plus, from the standpoint of just good you can do in the world, starvation is a real thing right now because of a lot of the political choices and the money printing fiascos and all those kinds of things that are going on. And so, I mean, I read a stat that right now, and I don't know if I believe it, frankly, because I think it was being used to raise money, but somewhere along the line of one child every minute in Somalia is being checked into a clinic for malnutrition. So I'm not saying that they have the money to pay for it, but I'm just saying if you can get in and solve efficiency problems with food, if you can solve health problems with food, I just think it's a fascinating
Microfarming and technologies to support problems that are happening there. There's going to be so much opportunity over the next 3 years in that space.
Or 10, yeah.
I'd just love to hear when it comes to your production and maybe more on the Harmon Brothers commercials and things like that. Just the curiosity where you've spoken about crowdfunding and residuals and then when you're just like, okay, straight up, just pay me for it and then we'll make it for you. How do you balance and when do you choose your business model and how you work with that?
Sure. So the agency was definitely formed to be a services business, right? As much of a cash business as possible. And we've experimented with all kinds of things. We have a small VC fund that has invested in Harmon Brothers projects with Rob McMillan at Ventures. Done some partnering. It's kind of on an SPV model. So we've tried some rev share models. We've done ad spend royalties. We've done just really high production prices, and then make money on change orders and edits and those kinds of things.
And yeah, I mean, on the Angel side, we've had to basically kind of rebuild the whole system from top to bottom, the way that things get funded, the way that they get distributed. We have to deal with all the FCC FINRA stuff. So there's multiple businesses there, from
Just to deal with
funding to content production to distribution.
On the agency side, honestly, we're in a period of fluidity right now. So meaning we're more custom about our packages. We're more experimental with our concepting lower upfront deposits. The macroeconomic situation affects everyone, right, and us included. And we still have a great pipeline and some awesome projects that have released in this environment. They're in
We have to
COVID.
adjust.
But we have to adjust, and so price adjustments, all of it. It just you try to adjust as rapidly as you can. Does that make sense? Does it answer your question?
All right. We have a Matthew at the back. I recognize you. Do you have a question that you think we should be asking as we wrap up?
What did your, okay, I have a little inside knowledge here, but I don't actually know the answer to this question. What's the greatest obstacle you faced that created the greatest Harmon innovation? By the way, that's patented. Everyone in the room.
Oh.
I
You can pass.
What do you guys? What would you consider when you see what we've talked about and what we've done? What's the most important innovation? I don't know. What is? Oh, Angel.
VidAngel.
VidAngel. Okay, so what was the obstacle that created the innovation around? Yeah, so the obstacle that came up that created VidAngel was I had a 9-year-old son, our oldest, who's now in Hong Kong serving a mission, and he's almost 20. But at that time, he was 9, and I loved the movie Cinderella Man. You guys heard some of my story of eating food storage and just being in a really down or hard spot. Personal depression. So seeing Cinderella Man and this boxer who went through the Great Depression, lost all his wealth and almost lost his children. And then when his son steals the salami and then they take it back to the butcher and then when he comes out on the sidewalk, his son tells him how scared he is. He's going to be sent away from home, and his dad gives him a big hug, and then he looks at him in the eyes and says, "Son, we don't steal." And the way that he said that, I wanted that message for my 9-year-old. And there's a coach, a New York coach, who uses language that I didn't want my 9-year-old using with his younger sisters. So I learned about the YouTube API and coded up a little software in 2012 just so we could watch that movie without those words. So that was the obstacle that created that innovation.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for...
They shut us off.
Give them a round of applause. So I don't know if we've got energy for this, but so the two things that I found out about you guys, and I'm not sure if it's these two brothers, but fake fighting was one of them. Apparently you faked fight, and you can tell us what that means. And if you can still do it, then maybe the audience can choose the challenge. Can you still do it?
Yeah, we real fought.
You didn't hit. Okay, it was real.
Mom and Dad were gone once, and we went all fists throughout the house, and we never fought again. We realized we could cause damage to each other seriously.
Or maybe it's something you told your parents, that it was just fake fighting. Don't worry about it.
No, we do have a fake fight where you make it sound like you're punching. But I think it was Daniel. Daniel and I used to do that.
Okay, so we
I
can't
don't
do
know
that
if
here.
I might actually
You might hurt him. The other one was to do with, there's something in this room, I should have said it at the beginning, that we put up on the walls that relates to something from your childhood. Yeah, now, just a second. Here we go. It's a little cheesy, but we want to see who's the
You want to
best.
see if this will work?
Wasn't this your first job from your parents? Right? Tell us what it was.
So we lived near a dairy, and our house filled with flies all the time, and our parents.
There was like a 3-week period.
Yeah.
And they would pay.
They would pay us a penny a fly to kill the flies. And Grandma and Grandpa bought us a whole box of rubber bands. And so we'd sit down and we'd kill flies with rubber bands.
Which one was better? Do you know?
I don't remember.
I was a squatter because I get paid way more. I could get like 5 paid at a time.
Probably Jeffrey, because he's more, yeah.
Oh my
Oh, not bad. Give us one more shot. Hey. So we need to wrap up, but there is some prizes. So first of all, let's just start with, we're going to give, thanks to these wonderful brothers, 5 courses. Can you just tell us just quickly what those 2 courses are? And we're going to do these after the event.
Sure. So we've built courses that one of them really takes you through our kind of classic ad style called the 14-Day Script Challenge. And it's, the problem, solution, education, supporting your argument, those kinds of things. And it's a great course because you come out of it with a script. And so we're going to give, you want that one, or you can choose one called Easy Ads to Sell. These, I think, you buy them on the site for a couple $100, $200 or $300. But the Easy Ads that Sell, it actually goes through 15 different ad styles, and they're not all ours. Meaning, a lot of this was like evaluation of what's out there in the marketplace, and they're low cost. So these are ones that you can do on your phone or with very simple editing software, and we take you through these different kind of messaging architectures, we'll call them, or ad styles. And there's worksheets and so forth to help you build some ads on a budget. And we call them EATs, Easy Ads that Sell. You'll also hear us call them labs sometimes. We like these acronyms, kind of funny. Learning Ads Blitz. We're trying to learn a lot really quickly with these ads. So you can spend real money on these kinds of ads and do them at a very high production, but you'll recognize some of the patterns out there, but it'll help you kind of crystallize your thoughts as you.
They're actually a good answer to your question. I mean, for digital marketing, these are really great courses.
Yeah. I was gonna get back to you though with some that aren't ours. I want it to be self-serving. So anyway,
Except you're giving them for free.
Yeah, that's true. So we're happy to give some of these away. And
So a photo, if you can take a photo of this event, so maybe we'll do a group photo right now, and just post something, the photo and something you learned
On Instagram.
on Instagram
Or LinkedIn.
or LinkedIn, and then we'll choose 5 from that. So 5 winners, and then in the crowd right now, I'm not sure. We've been worried about this. How do I give out some of these things right now? I want to try one thing, and I know we've gone way over time. I want you to cheer for the best talents that you guys submitted in the forms, right? And we'll see who gets the best cheer.
Well, you want it. What if they're not here, though?
I know it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you gotta be honest if it's a decent skill. So first one, let's ignore that because I can't think. They can't think of one. Let's see what do we got here? I can flare my nostrils. Who's that?
When somebody signed up on Eventbrite, did they say that was their special skill?
Emily. I don't think there's many Emilys here. It's not you. Okay. Writing a book. Okay. I used electronics and design skills to build custom Bluetooth. Okay, let's forget that one. Was that one of you?
What if that was somebody?
Let's finish it. What it actually says. Sorry, my mistake. I used electronics and design skills to build custom Bluetooth boom boxes. That's cool. Housed in vintage luggage. It's a lot harder than it looks. So
What's the name
I should
on
have.
that?
I need to read that. It's you, isn't it? So that's fantastic. That is Stan Mickelson. Is that right? There we go. You
Very
got.
cool,
I think you get a course straight away. I think you. I'm really good at inserting my Jeep into any conversation. I always make it relevant. Well, Clint,
There
you
you
didn't
go.
ask a question. Did you ask a question? Well, you better ask it right now and
Make
use
sure
the
that
word
your Jeep
Jeep.
is in there. Yeah.
What's your question?
About Jeeps?
About Jeeps? Don't forget. Right, okay, sorry.
Great question.
And you did include Jeep in there, did you? You did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so there's a giveaway there.
There's two.
Very nice.
Let's see, what else is there, Josh? I'm sorry, let's
No.
just get through one, two more. I use my one-word French vocabulary to purchase fish in France. Who's
Oh,
that?
the one-word vocabulary. That's
Any
you?
laughs there? There's a bit of...
So you know the one word for fish.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah. Nice.
How about the next one, Josh? or any of these?
All right. This we'll do one more.
That one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
How about, let's just ask who's in the room.
let's do that.
Dixie. Is Dixie in the room? Oh, well, you might have to do it for us then. Dixie, once I had to mimic the call of a cougar for a work thing. I'm really good at it. Are you any good at it? well, if she can post the cougar impression online, she gets a course.
Okay, we'll do
How's that?
we'll do one more for
Yeah?
somebody who is here. I do want to call this one out. I use no code to build a 7-figure tech company.
Jordan.
Very cool.
There we go.
All right, Jordan.
All right. Did we give away 5?
I think that was 5. And so for everybody else, though, of course, you can take a photo here,
Yeah.
right?
Let's do it.
Tag at the Swell Pod, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn. We'll pick 5 people who do that, and we'll send out some more free stuff. But who gets the squatty potty? Didn't you have a squatty potty?
It didn't come on time. It said it was going to come yesterday. But it will come. So, well, who wants the squatty potty? And can you give me a good reason for having it?
That should be. Yeah.
Well, we know what the good reason is, but... Well, go on then, Josh. Give us...
No.
How do we do it? Can you demonstrate? Who's the best demonstrator of how to use it?
I think since we're being we were robbed of the cougar impression.
Okay.
Maybe the person who could give the best cougar impression
Like now?
right now.
Right now.
Okay, second one. Any other takers? Is that it? Cougar? All right.
All right. So we have okay. So do them one more time, and then we'll have the audience vote.
Give it a microphone. Come on.
All right. Second one again. All right. So who's voting for the first one? Just cheer for him. Yeah. All right. And who's voting for the second one?
Not bad, not bad.
We might have to buy 2 squatty potties.
I've got
Okay.
a runner-up for this is a this is so great. I didn't ask for any swag in enough time, but I have one at home and it's been washed and dried.
Oh God.
Hunter, it's yours.
Let's.
It's a Hunter. No, wait. It's a Harmon's brother. It might have come from the DI. No offense.
Oh, I need one of those.
That's yours.
All right.
Thanks for helping. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, so if you guys, the people that we called out for the giveaway, just come up and talk to us. Make sure that we get your names. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Can we
thanks,
grab
everybody.
can we grab a photo with you guys? Sure. Anyone that wants to join in, it'd be great for Instagram or LinkedIn. Naomi, will you take some photos of the whole group? Yep. A bit reluctant there. Get out. That's going to look really weird. I'm too tall. Thank you guys. Oh yeah. We went way.
I think
Your
we
wives
took
are
most of
gonna
it
be like-
inside of the hour. Meaning it was the Q&A that went over, right?
Yeah. Let's get out of here though for these guys. Sorry. You event starts at 6 probably.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. Thank you.
How do you need it set up? Do you need the chairs
Yeah.
putting away
Just all
or
the chairs
lining
down
up?
here.
You want them gone?
No, no, have them down here. Just maybe like move the couch out and then have the chairs go.
All right, we'll
to
get.
the front.
We'll,
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
Testing. you choose to walk it with. And the grass ain't always greener on the other side. It's okay, but I wish it was easy like it sounds. Just believe one day and your walls start coming down. Trust me, things are gonna be alright. It's okay. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? Don't you know that? I wish it was easy like it sounds. Just believe one day and your walls start coming down. Trust me, things are gonna be alright. It's okay. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. Don't you know that? Yeah, don't you know that? We know where all the red ferns grow. 2 feet against me, beyond my reach. 6 keys and 1 whole heart for each, 1 whole way for me. Grass stains cut my bloody knees. It's good pain. It means I can't be and that little death inside my sides won't make it right. He wins every time I find myself inside, alone all night. And I'll be howling, keeping you between my eyes. There I'll be alright. I'll be howling, keeping you between my eyes. There I'll be alright. Ocean pieces that I lack. No felt stain come beneath my weight, behind my suture face. Curse down, throw my certain down. Let me let you down. That little death inside my sides won't make it right. He wins every time I find myself inside, alone all night. And I'll be howling, keeping you between my eyes. There I'll be